So I'd like to go through the basics of setting up a two-point perspective, linear perspective drawing of a basic cityscape. And this will just be two structures in two-point perspective on 8.5 by 11 paper. So you'll need a straight edge. If you have a right angle, that's great. If not, any straight edge will be fine. You'll also need, if you have a kneaded eraser, that's great. You guys all should have one if you have the kit. And whatever other erasers you have, pencil sharpener, and 4H pencil, an HB pencil, and a 4B pencil. And the 4H pencil is what we're going to be doing most of the beginning part of the drawing with. And the first thing you want to do in any perspective drawing like this is lay across the horizon line. And remember, the horizon line is synonymous with the eye level. So that's basically the height of the viewer, the height of the artist who's making the drawing. So the next thing we want to do is put a little point, and we're working with slightly smaller paper, but so I'm going to push it all the way to the edge of the page, and then that's the left vanishing point, and the right vanishing point I'll put all the way over on this edge here. So we have basically everything we need to really start this drawing. So horizon line, eye level, a vanishing point on the left and vanishing point on the right. Basically what this defines is the furthest to the left and the right you would see if you were standing about here. It's sort of the farthest your peripheral vision would go. So avoid putting things up really close to the vanishing points. So keep them so that they're pushed away a little bit, at least an inch or so. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and this being from the imagination, it really can go almost anywhere when you start in the beginning, in the center. But what you want to start with in two-point perspective, since these are structures that are turned at an angle from yourself and the picture plane, is you want to start with the closest of any of these objects to you, which is the leading edge. And the leading edge is just that. It is the angled part of the structure, like the rectangle or the building, that's pushed up towards you. So I've drawn one right here, and that's the best sort of way to start. The next thing you'll do is, still with the 4H pencil, is connect back. You'll go to the bottom of that line and draw a nice light sharp line back to the left vanishing point and go to the top, and you're going to do the same. You're going to go over back to the bottom line and connect that to the right vanishing point. And now we have the beginnings of like the first two planes of this structure. And for this type of perspective drawing, we're going to estimate, because now we need to find out the width of this side, because it's not going to be going all the way back into the vanishing point. That would make this like, hundreds of miles long, which is not really possible. So what we'll do is we will cut up, just kind of visualize the size we want this to be, and there's a good sort of end for it there. And I'll say I want this end to be about this wide. So we have a nice sort of kind of typical for a building rectangular shape. And what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to get the HB pencil, and to keep this from being confusing, I'm going to quickly reestablish a little darker with the HB pencil the leading edge. And also, this is a good time to kind of play with line weights and your pressure you put as you're on the page as you're drawing. And then I'm going to darken the top and the bottom of this wall here. I'm going to darken the back so it's very clear that this is one face, and I'll do the same here quickly. So there is the two faces of the building. The next thing we'll do is go right back to the, we'll go to the 4H pencil, the light sharp pencil, and we're going to go back to build the other sides of this building. So we'll go from this point, this bottom of this line, and we'll pull that all the way back. The same with the top. And then we're going to go basically hit all of these back corners and connect these lines to the vanishing points. So that's what these are called, and they're in the vocabulary list that's in the modules. But these are orthogonal lines, which is not a term we use very often, but they're the lines that are there to help build the structures. And then the darker lines, we generally call them construction lines. So what I'm going to do is go back with an HB pencil and just quickly kind of reaffirm the parts of that structure. So I'm going over just the parts of those orthogonal lines that are part of the building itself now. And what I'd like you to do is leave all those lines, those orthogonal lines, as part of the drawing. And they're going to be part of the structure, and they'll help me kind of view and see what you're doing when I take a look at them. And they're also aesthetically, they make for an interesting part of the drawing as well. So use this as an opportunity to play with line weights. You can also, instead of erasing, if something's appearing too dark, you can just take the kneaded eraser and kind of tap it onto those lines. So it doesn't erase them, but just maybe kind of softens them a little and lets the other lines come forward. So the next thing I would do is, we have the basic structure that's there, is I'm going to want to give some detail to it. So I'm going to take the 4H pencil, and what I'm going to want to do is find the side of this this structure here. So now that it's in perspective, the middle of this wall, this plane here, won't be right in the middle. It will have shifted, and the way we find that is by drawing an X through the side. And this is going to give us, that's the center now of this in perspective, and it'll do the same here. So I know this is the center of these walls here. So now what I'll do is I'm going to want to maybe make a, since these drawings should be transparent, what I want to do now is make a second floor between about halfway through. And I know this is the middle of this side, and that's the middle of this side. So I'm going to go back to this vanishing point and draw an orthogonal line up to this point here. And then for this side, I'm going to do the same. And what that gives us is basically the face of the first floor of this structure. And I'll make it a little darker with an HB pencil. And now we're going to need, with the 4H pencil, to find the other sides of that first floor of this building. There's one side, and then I'll connect this corner back with this vanishing point here. So now you can start to see there's sort of a second floor, and it's in proper perspective, in 2-point perspective. And even, I would say, give a slight bit of thickness to it to kind of give an idea that it's a floor. And has some actual physical proportions to it. And as you need to, you can sort of clean up, if you kind of overshoot some of the lines and it gets unclear, you can erase some of those. And then what you should do after that is you should be building another structure, which you could draw over here. And again, you'd start with the leading edge, And then also, for example, you should probably populate this with things like doors and windows. With a door, for example, if you wanted to put one right in the middle of this wall, what you would do is draw a line through that axis point, and that will give you a door that's about right in the middle here. And then with these, remember that the vertical lines always stay straight up and down in 2-point perspective and 1-point perspective. So I have a door there, and with these type of things, I'm gonna again go and make it a little bit darker. And you would do the rest with, you could apply windows here by lining those up with those same vanishing points. So it's mainly just keeping that everything, if it's not vertical, it's going to line up with one of these. And when you build windows and things like that, give them a thickness, because you would see the inside of that wall basically if this were a window. And those would also line up with both of those vanishing points. And so basically, I would like those, details like that added kind of throughout the faces of the buildings, and including the second building. Make the second one a little bit higher or a little bit lower, but basically kind of a large structure like that, that's somewhere in this area.